They never pushed you out because you didn't belong. They pushed you out because you were becoming someone they could no longer control. That's the part they'll never admit out loud. People love pretending you were the problem, but the truth is simple. Your presence exposed everything they were trying to keep hidden. It's like walking into a dusty room and suddenly opening all the windows. The light lands on things nobody wants to see. That's what you did to them without even trying. Think about it. When a group wants to stay comfortable, the first person they attack is the one asking bigger questions. The one who sees deeper, thinks further, and refuses to shrink just to fit in. And here's a fact they hope you never figure out. Groups don't exile the weak. They exile the powerful. Studies in social psychology literally show that people who think independently get pushed out faster than followers, not because they're wrong, but because they disrupt the hierarchy. That's you. You weren't a threat to their comfort. You were a threat to their control. And thank you, chosen one. Before we go further, don't forget to pay this message back by hitting the like and subscribe. It helps push this truth into more timelines, spreads the light, and strengthens this mission. You're part of a force bigger than anything they ever understood. Now let's get right back into what matters. You weren't an outcast because you failed. You were an outcast because you were growing past the level they needed you to stay at. All those times they side-eyed you, mocked your ideas, or pretended you were too much. Those were the moments the universe was marking you for something higher. While they were chasing validation, you were building depth. While they needed attention, you needed purpose. And purpose always pulls you away from crowds before it places you above them. Look at your life closely. Every moment you were left out, ignored, doubted, or underestimated didn't break you. It shaped you. Leaders don't grow in comfort. Leaders grow in the quiet corners, far away from applause. Leaders grow when they learn to trust their own mind because nobody else supported them. And the universe does that on purpose. When you're meant to guide people, you can't be raised like everyone else. You need the kind of pressure that builds sharpness. You need the kind of distance that builds vision. The people who tried to dim you weren't dealing with someone ordinary. You were the kid who noticed things others pretended not to see. You were the teen who picked up on energy before people opened their mouth. You were the adult who could feel the truth even when everyone around you was lying to themselves. They didn't hate you for being different. They hated you for being awake. That's why they tried to turn your differences into flaws. They couldn't handle someone who didn't break the way they expected. They couldn't handle the fact that you saw through their games. They couldn't handle someone who wasn't impressed by their surface-level nonsense. Every jab, every insult, every silent treatment was really their fear trying to disguise itself as confidence. But here's the twist they never saw coming. That isolation didn't damage you, it trained you. When you sit alone long enough, you learn to hear your own voice. You develop instincts people in crowds never develop. You turn self-control into a weapon. You turn reflection into power. And by the time you walk back into the world, you're not the same person they threw out. You're someone they're not equipped to handle anymore. There's a reason the universe didn't allow you to blend in. Blending in would have made you ordinary. Ordinary minds can follow. Extraordinary minds lead. And leadership demands things crowds will never understand. Patience, distance, clarity, and resilience. You were forced to collect all four of those without anyone's permission. That's why you stand out now, even when you're silent. That's why people tense up when you walk in. That's why they study you like a threat, even when you haven't said a word. You carry the kind of energy that can shift a room without moving. That's not something you learn, that's something you survive into. And you survived everything designed to shrink you. Every betrayal, every fake friend, every closed door, they all sharpened the edges you're going to need. Isolation taught you how to think for yourself. Betrayal taught you who deserves access. Loneliness taught you how to move without needing approval. And pain taught you how to stand tall even when everything around you collapses. That's leadership training, the real kind, the kind nobody volunteers for, the kind only the chosen survive. You weren't cut out of their world, you outgrew it, and the universe separated you before you dimmed your own power to keep other people comfortable. The loneliness you hated was actually your promotion. The silence you sat in was your transformation. And the outcast label they slapped on you was really your first badge of leadership. You're not behind, you're not broken, you're not lost, you're prepared. And the people who once saw you as a threat are about to see you as the blueprint. And chosen one, thank you for standing in this moment instead of running from it. Before we go deeper, take a second and ground yourself, because what comes next isn't entertainment. It's clarity. It's the kind of truth that shifts something inside you, the kind of truth people spend years searching for. If you're ready to claim every moment you were pushed aside, drop the number 777 in the comments so the universe knows you're stepping into your leadership era. And if you want to keep this message alive, support the team behind it with a super thanks. It doesn't matter if it's a penny or a fortune. Every bit of energy strengthens this mission and pushes these messages into timelines where other outcasts turned leaders are waking up too. Now breathe, because once we move forward, you're going to feel why everything you lived through had purpose. You're going to see why isolation wasn't punishment, but preparation. And if you really are a chosen one, you'll feel that pull to stay until the very last word. This is your turning point, not a moment to click away. Now, let's step into it. Number 1. They tried to crush you, but accidentally created their worst nightmare. Funny how they tried to break you and ended up building someone they can't even look in the eyes anymore. That's the punch they deserve right out the gate, because the truth is, they never understood the kind of force they were messing with. They thought you were fragile. They thought you were soft. They thought you were just another easy target to poke, drain, and step on. They had no idea the universe hid steel inside your bones. And now, their biggest regret is realizing they trained the very leader who will rise above every limitation they tried to put on you. Let's get something clear from the start. They didn't hurt your feelings. They tried to erase you. They pushed you out, mocked you, doubted you, and treated you like you were disposable. They threw their words like knives, hoping one would finally stick deep enough to make you fold. And yet here you are, breathing, thinking, rising. Tell me, chosen one, who really lost? If you were truly weak, why are they the ones losing sleep now? Think about it like this. When metal is thrown into the fire, does it melt into nothing? No. It becomes stronger, sharper, deadlier. And you were thrown into fires no one else could have handled. They watched the flames climb around you and smirked, convinced you'd turn to ash. What they didn't expect was that the fire wasn't consuming you. It was transforming you. You didn't walk out of those flames the same. You walked out unrecognizable, in the best possible way. Here's the part that messes with their head the most. They thought your silence meant defeat, but silence is where chosen ones download their next move. Silence is where leaders are built. Silence is where you learn to think instead of react. While they were busy gossiping, laughing, and dragging your name through mud, you were learning emotional precision. You were learning mental discipline. You were developing the kind of self-control that scares insecure people straight. You ever wonder why they kicked you when you were already down? Because deep down, they knew one truth you didn't know yet. You rise every single time. They were desperate to destroy you before you figured out you weren't just different. You were ahead. You weren't cast out. You were cast forward. They just disguised it as rejection. Let's talk about the nights nobody saw, the nights where your chest felt too heavy to breathe, the nights where you questioned everything, your worth, your direction, your existence. Those moments weren't weakness. They were the pressure points shaping you into someone whose presence would later send a chill through the same people who caused that pain. Those nights taught you how to rebuild yourself from scratch. They taught you discipline no classroom could ever teach. They taught you resilience no mentor could ever explain. You didn't break, you transformed. You didn't collapse, you recalibrated. You didn't lose yourself. You found the version of you that was hidden under all the noise they created. And here's a fact most people will never understand. The strongest leaders aren't shaped by praise, they're shaped by exclusion. Leaders aren't born on stages, they're born in the shadows, in the quiet, in the moments where nobody claps and nobody cares. You lived through that, and you didn't just survive it, you learned from it. You learned to see through people, to hear things they didn't say, to recognize intentions before they spoke. That's what isolation gifts you. That's why you're dangerous now. That's why you're unpredictable. That's why they can't read you anymore. They spent years underestimating you, and now they're scrambling to understand the person you've become. But they won't, because they weren't there for the chapters that built this version of you. Let's be real. You scare them now. Not because you're violent or loud, but because you're unshakable. You don't beg, you don't chase, you don't explain. You move with the calm of someone who has survived too much to fear anything small. Your energy says, I've seen worse than you, and I leveled up from it. Chosen one, these people didn't just try to break you, they tried to break the universe's investment, and that never works. They weren't fighting your personality, they were fighting your potential. They weren't bothered by your attitude, they were bothered by your evolution. They weren't threatened by your mistakes, they were threatened by your ability to rise from them. And now they're realizing the truth they never wanted to face. You weren't fragile, you were formative. Every hit they threw made you smarter. Every betrayal made you more selective. Every rejection taught you how to detach. Every setback carved out the leader inside you. They built a weapon, accidentally. But here's the part that really burns them. Weapons don't seek revenge. Weapons simply do what they were made to do, cut through anything standing in the way. Your growth is not revenge. Your clarity is not revenge. Your glow-up is not revenge. It's simply the outcome of someone who was forced to grow without support. You didn't become strong to prove them wrong. You became strong because you had no other choice. Answer this honestly. If they had treated you right, would you have ever reached this version of you? Would you have ever discovered how much you can endure, how far you can go, how sharp you can become? Probably not. Their cruelty ironically activated your greatness. The universe has a sick sense of humor sometimes. It lets your enemies do the dirty work, not realizing they're sharpening the very blade that will later cut through every limitation they placed on you. And now, look at them, watching from a distance, confused, quiet, nervous. They don't laugh anymore. They don't mock anymore. They whisper now. They watch you with that stiff smile that says, I hope they don't remember what I did. But you remember. You just don't carry it like a wound anymore. You carry it like a badge. This is where the tables turn. This is where the outcast becomes the leader. This is where your scars become your strategy. This is where everything they tried to use against you becomes the exact thing that sets you apart. They weren't breaking you, they were building someone they can't handle. And chosen one, whether you fully believe it yet or not, that's the beginning of your leadership. Not the kind where you boss people around, but the kind where your existence becomes an example, where your survival becomes a map, where your strength becomes proof that the universe never wastes pain. You were shaped in silence, so you could rise in power. And now you're ready. Number 2. They tried to numb you, but accidentally turned you into a mind reader. Wild how they tried to blind you, and now you're the one who sees straight through them. That's the punch they earned. Because let's be honest, they didn't just hurt you. They were hoping to shut something off inside you. They wanted you confused, insecure, emotionally paralyzed, too drained to notice what they were really doing. They tried to hollow you out so you'd never look deeper than the surface. Instead, all they did was turn your senses into something razor sharp. You went from feeling lost to feeling everything. They gave you the very thing that now terrifies them: vision. Let's break this open from the top. Chosen one. When people constantly ignore your pain, dismiss your emotions, or shame you for caring, you start questioning yourself. You wonder, am I actually too much? Am I the problem? Why do I feel everything so deeply? And here's the truth. The universe wasn't breaking you down. It was rewiring you. Every moment of emotional abandonment became a quiet classroom where you learned to understand human behavior on a level most people will never reach. Imagine this: you're drowning, reaching out for a hand, and nobody reaches back. Most people would turn bitter. Most people would turn numb. But you turned inward. You stopped waiting for rescue and built an inner world where you could hear yourself clearly. That is rare. That is elite. That is the kind of development leaders go through when the universe is preparing them to guide others. Here's another metaphor for you. Imagine your life like a pitch-black room. Everybody else panics in the dark. They scream, they bump into walls, they grab onto anything. But you learned how to walk that room with your eyes closed. You mapped the shape of the shadows by feel. You learned what silence sounds like. And now, when the lights turn on, you see everything at once. Every mask, every lie, every hidden intention. That's what emotional survival does. It trains your instincts until they become a superpower. Pain didn't make you weaker, it gave you night vision. Every time someone hurt you and pretended they didn't, you learned to read tone. Every time someone said one thing and meant another, you learned to decode motives. Every time someone smiled while secretly envying you, your intuition took notes. Your brain connected patterns. Your heart refined its radar. They thought they were confusing you, when in reality they were training your emotional IQ higher than theirs will ever climb. Let's be honest, your empathy scares people, not because it's soft, but because it's accurate. You can see what people refuse to admit. You can feel tension before words even form. You can sense betrayal before the knife shows up. That level of perception makes certain people extremely uncomfortable. They hate that you pick up on the vibrations they try to hide under fake confidence. Here's the third metaphorical example. Imagine you're listening to music. Everyone else only hears the loud instruments, the drums, the vocals, but you hear the faint static in the background. You hear the hidden harmonies. You hear the tiny mistakes the artist made. That's how your emotional radar works. You don't just hear what people say. You hear what they meant, what they avoided, what they feared. You pick up the unspoken. That's X-ray vision disguised as sensitivity, and the enemy hates that most. Your sensitivity isn't a flaw. It's the part of you that refuses to be fooled. Chosen one, you didn't just walk through hell. You studied it. You learned the behavior of liars, manipulators, narcissists, cowards, pretenders. You learned their patterns before you even knew what to call them. You became the kind of person who can look into someone's eyes and tell if they're hiding pain or hiding intentions. People call that overthinking. They only call it that because they've never had to survive what you survived. Let me answer the silent questions that always hit your mind at this point. Why do I feel people so deeply? Because you had to read danger before it arrived. Why do other people stay blind? Because they never had to develop vision. Why do people get uncomfortable around me? Because you notice their truth even when they're trying to hide it. Why do I get tired around fake people? Because your nervous system can't pretend like theirs does. You see how everything suddenly makes sense. They didn't give you scars. They gave you sonar. They didn't make you sensitive. They made you aware. They didn't weaken you. They heightened your perception to a level they'll never reach. You were never too emotional. You were too awake for their comfort. Here's a fourth metaphorical example that fits you perfectly. Imagine a tree standing alone on a cliff. The wind hits it harder than the trees in the forest. The storms tear through it without mercy. But because it stands alone, its roots grow deeper than any other tree around. While everyone else's roots stay shallow, yours drilled into the core of the earth. That's your emotional depth. That's your intuition. That's why you can feel storms before they arrive. That's why you can sense when someone is lying, even if they think they're clever. Your roots are deeper than their entire foundation. Your emotional depth is not a burden, it's a weapon forged in silence. And here's what you must understand. The universe doesn't give X-ray vision to people who haven't survived darkness. It gives it to the ones who were forced to navigate emotional chaos alone. The outcasts, the quiet ones, the misfits, the ones who never got the comfort they gave others. Those are the ones who return with a level of perception that shakes people. That's why you make some people nervous. They feel naked around you, one look from you, and they know you can see straight through their mask. They sense that your intuition doesn't miss. They can't lie around you comfortably. They can't fake feelings without you noticing. They can't hide their jealousy, insecurity, or intentions. You feel the crack before it forms. That's why people either cling to you or run from you. There is no middle ground. You are a mirror, and mirrors make insecure people uncomfortable. You see people so clearly because you once had to see your own pain without anyone helping you understand it. Chosen one, you aren't emotional because you're weak. You're emotional because you're tuned in. Those scars didn't numb your heart. They refined it. Those silent nights didn't turn you cold. They sharpened your senses. That abandonment didn't shut you down. It opened your third, fourth, and fifth layers of awareness. Stop apologizing for feeling deeply. Stop shrinking your perception to make others comfortable. Stop pretending you didn't notice what you noticed. That's your gift. That's your compass. That's the mark of someone who was molded for leadership long before they even knew what leadership meant. People don't follow those who feel nothing. People follow those who understand pain, because those are the ones who guide with clarity, not ego. You've lived through storms inside your own chest. You've gone to war with emotions most people avoid their entire lives. You've rebuilt yourself with hands that were shaking, and now, ironic as it is, you are the calm in someone else's hurricane. This is why the universe made your heart sensitive, not fragile, sensitive. Sensitive hearts sense danger early. Sensitive hearts detect truth faster. Sensitive hearts love with depth that heals entire rooms. Sensitive hearts become leaders when chaos hits because they understand what others overlook. They thought isolating you would make you numb. Instead, it gave you X-ray vision. They thought hurting you would make you blind. Instead, it taught you to see. They thought making you invisible would erase you. Instead, it made you impossible to deceive. You are not the same person they scarred. You're the person who returned with insight sharp enough to cut through any mask. You're the one who can walk into a room and feel exactly what's wrong. You're the one who can guide others because you know what it feels like to walk through emotional fire alone. Chosen one, they didn't create weakness. They created wisdom. And wisdom is what leaders are made of. You were wired for depth, wired for truth, wired for awareness. That's why you were chosen. That's why you were outcast. And that's why you can now step into a level of leadership they never saw coming. You see too much to ever be fooled again, and that vision they accidentally activated, it's your superpower now. Number 3, they thought your heart was a weak spot, not knowing it was your power source. Funny how they tried to break your heart, and now your heart is the thing that breaks their entire strategy. They seriously thought compassion made you soft, that your ability to care, to feel, to forgive somehow meant you were easy to manipulate. They assumed emotions were cracks. They never imagined they were circuits. They didn't realize your heart wasn't a weakness, it was a generator, and every time someone hurt you, it didn't drain you. It upgraded you. Let's rip this open. Imagine someone handing you a glass heart thinking, one fall and it'll shatter. But yours wasn't glass. It was tempered steel disguised as tenderness. The hits didn't break you. They heat-treated you. That's why your compassion looks different now. It's not naive. It's precise. It's selective. It's the kind that can walk into a room and pick up the pain no one else notices. That's not softness. That's tactical awareness. Your compassion didn't die. It evolved into a force they can't predict. You ever wonder, why do I care so deeply when everyone else seems numb? Simple. You weren't built to be like them. You weren't built to walk past suffering with dead eyes. Leaders don't get their strength from detachment. They get it from understanding what people hide. And you know those hidden places because you've lived there. Here's a fact they'll never accept. Numb people crack under pressure. Sensitive people adapt. They regenerate. They rise. You don't just feel pain. You translate it. You turn it into insight, into strategy, into instinct. That's why people come to you even after mistreating you. Your energy feels like clarity. Your presence feels like a reset. Compassion in the hands of a chosen one is louder than any threat. Imagine two warriors. One fights with muscles, the other fights with purpose. Who wins? Every time, the one with purpose. That's you. You don't fight to hurt people. You fight to wake them, to shift energy, to cut through illusions. That's why fake people panic in your presence. Your calm exposes them. Your silence reads them. Your love outperforms their ego. Your compassion isn't decoration. It's a weapon with perfect aim. It keeps you human in a world full of masks. It keeps you grounded when others collapse. You don't need a throne to lead. You lead by surviving with your heart still intact. And that heart they tried to break, it's the very thing that will crown you. Number 4. They labeled you delusional, not knowing you were thinking in a language they couldn't read. People call you unrealistic when their minds are too small to hold the size of your vision. That's the truth they choke on. They weren't analyzing you. They were projecting their limits onto you. You weren't delusional. You were dreaming in a higher bandwidth, one they simply didn't have the mental hardware to process. While they clung to recycled ideas like security blankets, you were tapping into possibilities that made their world look outdated. Let's drag this into the light. Imagine a kid staring at the ocean and seeing continents no one has mapped yet. The crowd behind him sees water. That's you. They mistake your foresight for fantasy because they're trapped inside their tiny mental boxes. You were never imagining nonsense. You were interpreting data they couldn't decode. Your vision wasn't too big. Their minds were too small. You ever wonder, why do my dreams feel so vivid when everyone else seems satisfied with average? Because you weren't built to repeat the script. You were built to rewrite it. Your ideas didn't come from boredom or desperation. They came from alignment, from observation, from silence that turned into direction. Here's a metaphor that fits you perfectly. Imagine someone looking at a seed and seeing dirt, but you look at the same seed and see a forest, not because you're naive, because you understand growth. You understand potential. You understand unfolding. They call that delusion. Leaders call it vision. And here's a fact. History proves that every innovator, creator, and game changer was mocked first. People laugh at ideas they don't understand until the idea becomes the new standard. Then suddenly everyone claims they always saw it. No, they didn't. They saw nothing. You saw everything. You weren't dreaming too high. You were dreaming too early. Your solitude wasn't punishment. It was incubation. The universe wasn't isolating you to break you. It was protecting your ideas from people who would have crushed them out of fear. You were blueprinting in private so you could build in power. Let's answer the question that's been hitting your mind for years. Why do my dreams feel real, even when no one believes in them? Because they are real. Because they come with direction, clarity, strategy, and that strange pull you can't shake. That isn't delusion. That's intuition tuned to another level. You're not crazy. You're advanced. You're not hallucinating. You're forecasting. You're not daydreaming. You're decoding. And the world that once mocked you, it'll follow you soon enough. Number 5. They tried to delete you, not knowing you'd rise like a flame they couldn't extinguish. Funny how they tried to erase your existence, and now your name burns louder than every lie they whispered. They didn't misunderstand you. They feared you. That's the real story. When people can't define you, they try to confine you. When they can't control you, they try to replace you. When they can't copy your essence, they try to bury it. But chosen one, you were never ink on their pages. You were fire preparing to write your own story on the world's skin. Imagine someone trying to smudge out a star in the night sky with their bare hands. Ridiculous, right? That's what they did. They thought they could dim you by ignoring you, mocking you, excluding you. They forgot one thing. Pressure doesn't erase originals. It exposes them. You weren't created for approval. You were created to stand out so violently that even silence can't hide you. Your authenticity was never a weakness. It was a spark waiting for oxygen. Every time they laughed at you, something inside you sharpened. Every time they shut you out, something inside you expanded. Every rejection became fuel. Every insult became acceleration. You didn't just survive their attempts to erase you. You became the walking proof that you cannot extinguish someone who was built from truth. Here's the part that hurts them the most. Your realness exposes their performance. Fake people crumble next to someone who isn't pretending. When you walk into a room with your unfiltered self, masks start slipping. That's why they tried to tone you down, shrink you, blend you into the crowd. Authentic souls make insecure ones feel transparent. Realness is rebellion in a world addicted to pretending. You ever wonder, why do people get uncomfortable when I show up as myself? Because authenticity forces reflection, and most people can't handle what they see. Chosen one, you didn't bend to fit their version of you. You didn't water down your truth to make them comfortable. You didn't surrender your originality to win their acceptance. Instead, you walked straight into your fire and let it rewrite you from the inside out. You aren't the outcast. You're the original blueprint. You aren't forgotten. You're unforgettable. You aren't erased. You're etched into the timeline with fire. And now they watch you shine with the painful realization that the person they tried to erase became the flame they can't escape. Number 6. They abandoned you, not knowing solitude was sharpening your blade. They thought leaving you alone would break you, but isolation didn't kill you. It carved you into someone they'll never be ready to face. That's the part they never saw coming. They thought your silence meant you were falling apart. They thought the empty room would swallow you. They thought walking away would finish you off. But all they did was lock you in a workshop the universe built specifically to rebuild you. Solitude wasn't your prison. It was your swordsmith. Imagine this, a blade heated, hammered, drowned, reheated, reshaped. Hard process, brutal process, but the end result is something unbreakable. That was you. While they lived loud, you lived deep. While they chased noise, you sat in the quiet and learned how to survive your own mind. That's a skill only the chosen earn. Silence didn't scare you, it trained you. You ever wonder why you became so calm? Why things that shake everyone else barely move you now? Because solitude hardened your nerves. You faced every thought people spend their whole lives avoiding. You confronted pain with no witnesses. You rebuilt yourself with no applause. The world sees your composure as confidence, but you know it's mastery. Here's a fact that hurts them. People who've survived their own storms don't fear other people's weather. That's why your presence feels like stability. That's why chaos hates you. You don't crumble. You don't beg. You don't panic. You sit, breathe, observe, and then move with intention. People who were never alone don't understand that kind of strength. Your solitude didn't break you. It broke your limits. Imagine sitting in a cave thinking you're dying, only to realize you were evolving. Isolation became your classroom. Your mind became your mentor. Your resilience became your armor. You didn't just survive being alone, you became fluent in it. Now, loneliness can't manipulate you. Silence can't scare you. Distance can't disarm you. And here's the twist they never expected. When you finally step out of your mountain, you won't return as the person they left behind. You'll return as the version they prayed you'd never become. Solitude didn't weaken you, it weaponized you. Number 7. They mistook your silence for confusion, not realizing you were mapping their every move. They thought you were zoning out, but you were downloading everything they tried to hide. They really believed your quiet was cluelessness. They thought your distance meant you were out of the loop. They saw you sitting still and assumed nothing was happening behind your eyes. Meanwhile, your mind was running laps around theirs. You weren't just watching, you were studying, calculating, analyzing, memorizing. Every lie, every smirk, every shift in tone, every mask that slipped for a split second, nothing went over your head. it went into storage. Silence is the most dangerous position when it belongs to someone who thinks. Imagine a chessboard. They were too busy bragging about how many pieces they captured. You were watching the entire strategy form 3 moves ahead. You didn't need noise. You needed data. You didn't need to speak. You needed clarity. They thought the game was about attention, but you knew it was about observation. Leaders don't flex. Leaders watch. Leaders learn. Leaders wait for the perfect moment to strike. Here's what they never figured out. You weren't antisocial. You were decoding them. Your silence wasn't emptiness. It was precision. You were tracking behavioral patterns like a human lie detector. You noticed the fake laugh. You sensed the hidden envy. You caught the contradiction mid-sentence. You saw what everyone else was too distracted to see. Quiet people aren't slow. They're processing more than loud people can handle. You ever wonder why you remember small details others forget? Because your brain was trained in survival mode. You had to observe to protect yourself. You had to read rooms before stepping into them. You had to sense danger before it arrived. That's not paranoia. That's evolved intelligence. Imagine someone thinking you were out of it while you were dissecting their intentions like a surgeon. That's you. Calm face, focused eyes, mind sharp enough to slice through lies like paper. You weren't behind. You were above. You weren't lost. You were gathering proof. You weren't passive. You were calculating consequences. And now you see through manipulation before it even starts. You detect fakeness before it fully forms. You can predict reactions like you're reading from a script. They played the game loudly. You learned how it was rigged quietly, and that makes you the most dangerous one in the room. Number 8. They pushed you out, not knowing they were cutting the chains off a giant. Rejection didn't exile you. It unlocked you. That's the punch they never saw coming. They thought giving you the cold shoulder would freeze your spirit. They thought shutting the door would keep you small. They thought excluding you would make you come crawling back for approval. Instead, every no, every silent treatment, every dismissal snapped another chain off your potential. They weren't pushing you away. They were accidentally releasing the very power they hoped you would never discover. Being rejected by people who fear growth is not a loss, it's liberation. Imagine this. A bird trapped in a cage thinks it's broken. Then one day, someone opens the door, not out of kindness, but out of annoyance. They expect it to fall, but instead, it flies. That was you. Their rejection didn't crush you. It showed you the sky. You ever wonder why their absence felt like oxygen? Why the moment they removed themselves, your mind suddenly felt clearer, your ideas sharper, your spirit lighter? Because you weren't meant to live under their ceiling. You weren't meant to shrink to fit their comfort zones. You weren't meant to dim your energy to avoid triggering their insecurities. Their rejection removed you from environments that were suffocating your purpose. Every rejection was a redirect disguised as an insult. While they begged for approval, you built identity. While they chased clicks, you built clarity. While they clung to groups for relevance, you learned how to stand alone without shaking. That separation didn't weaken you. It activated you. It forced you to hear your own voice without their noise contaminating it. Imagine a plant growing in bad soil. It looks weak. Then someone uproots it thinking they're killing it. But once replanted in real ground, it explodes with growth. That's you. Rejection was your transplant into better ground. And here's a fact that burns them deep. People who reject you don't expect you to rise without them. They expect dependence. They expect collapse. They expect regret. Instead, you became a version of yourself that doesn't even think about them anymore. That's the part that keeps them awake. You didn't lose them. You lost limits. Chosen one, you stopped begging for seats at their tables the moment you realized you could build your own and your table. It's bigger, stronger, realer, and it doesn't collapse under ego. The truth is, you weren't built to be accepted by the crowd. You were built to lead the crowd once they stopped sleepwalking. They called you an outsider because they didn't know they were standing next to the architect of the next era. They rejected you and set you free. They pushed you out and pushed you forward. They closed doors and you learned to build walls with windows. When they look back one day, and they will, they won't see an outcast. They'll see the blueprint they should have learned from. Rejection didn't break you, it crowned you. Number 9. They sensed your rise before you even recognized your own power. They weren't reacting to who you were, they were reacting to who you were becoming. That's the part nobody tells you. The resistance you faced wasn't random. The jealousy didn't come out of nowhere. The cold energy, the weird tension, the sudden distance, none of it was about the version of you standing in front of them. It was about the version of you they could feel growing behind you. They sensed your future before you even understood your present. Imagine this, a storm forming miles away, still invisible, but animals already start running for cover. That's how your enemies responded to you. Instinct. They didn't see lightning, but they felt the pressure change. They didn't see your glow up yet, but your energy told them it was inevitable. You confused them because you didn't walk like your circumstances. You walked like someone who had somewhere to go. People don't fear your past. They fear the future they know they can't stop. Ever notice how certain people treated you like competition before you even realized there was a race? Ever wonder why someone disliked you instantly, despite you doing nothing wrong? It's because they weren't reacting to your actions. They were reacting to your potential. Some people can read energy better than words, and your energy told them one truth. This one is going somewhere. Imagine a seed sitting in dirt. It looks small, powerless, harmless, but even before it breaks the ground, the soil feels the pressure. That's what you were. Pressure, rising, expanding, becoming, and the people around you felt that shift. They saw glimpses of greatness you hadn't grown into yet. They saw confidence forming before you could name it. They saw fire lighting before you could control it. Your future self was already intimidating your present enemies. You weren't behind. You weren't lost. You were charging, and they panicked because they knew once you discovered your own strength, nobody could cage you again. They tried to discourage you, distract you, derail you, not because you were weak, but because they knew you wouldn't stay that way. They feared your potential long before you ever claimed it. Now you're stepping into the power they prayed you'd never notice. Number 10. They threw chaos at you, not knowing it would turn your focus into a weapon. They didn't derail you. They refined you. That's the sting they deserve. Every distraction they tossed your way was supposed to blur your vision, drain your energy, and pull you off your path. They used drama as bait. They used gossip as poison. They used chaos as a cage. But Chosen One, all they did was force you to develop a level of focus so sharp it could cut through steel. Think about it. You weren't born with discipline. You earned it in environments designed to break concentration. While they were busy stirring nonsense, you were learning how to stay locked in. While they tried to drown you in noise, you learned how to move in silence. You became someone who could work while hurting, think while stressed, observe while attacked. That's elite-level focus created by survival, not motivation. Distraction only destroys people who don't know their mission. Imagine this: someone trying to blindfold a warrior during training, thinking it'll ruin them, only for the warrior to learn how to fight without sight. That's you. Their distractions didn't confuse you. They strengthened your inner compass. They sharpened your ability to filter, to prioritize, to sense what mattered and what was noise. Ever ask yourself, why did the universe let me deal with so much unnecessary chaos? Because the chosen don't build weak focus, they build laser sight. You learned how to tune out nonsense because you were surrounded by it. You learned how to stay committed because people kept trying to knock you off course. You learned how to listen inward because everyone externally was loud and wrong. Here's the truth. Every distraction they threw at you was a test disguised as sabotage, and you passed. You didn't collapse into their chaos, you rose above it. Your mind became disciplined, your energy became guarded, your goals became non-negotiable. People who try to distract you are really trying to delay their own defeat. Now you move differently, calm, unbothered, focused. You see through drama instantly. You don't engage in chaos. You don't chase noise. You don't feed fires. You walk with precision because you learned early that your time is too valuable to waste. They tried to pull you off your path. Instead, they forged a version of you who can't be moved. Number 11. They laughed at your standards, not knowing they were watching you outgrow their entire reality. They didn't mock your standards because they were unrealistic. They mocked them because they could never reach them. That's the truth they choke on. Every joke, every insult, every eye roll about you being too picky, too protective, or too hard to impress wasn't about your standards being wrong. It was about your evolution making them uncomfortable. People living at the bottom always hate the view from someone climbing out. Your boundaries weren't walls. They were proof your soul refused to stay small. Imagine this. You're climbing a staircase while everyone else is sitting on the floor. They call you dramatic for standing. They call you demanding for wanting higher. They call you difficult because they can't meet you where you're going. That's what standards do. They expose who's rising and who's refusing to move. Ever notice how the wrong people get loud the moment you decide you deserve better? That's because your growth shines a light on their stagnation. It's easier for them to mock your standards than admit they don't meet them. People don't hate your standards. They hate how your standards reveal their lack of depth. Imagine someone living in a cramped room mocking you for wanting a window. That's what happened. You weren't asking for too much. You were asking for what healthy people consider basic: respect, consistency, honesty, peace. But to people who thrive in chaos, your boundaries sounded like demands. Here's the twist. Every time someone said, "Your standards are too high," the universe whispered, "No, they're finally correct." You ever wonder, why does protecting my peace bother people so much? Because some people only liked you when you had none. They could take advantage when your boundaries were soft. They could manipulate when your expectations were low. But the moment you tightened your circle, the parasites panicked. Standards are the security system of the evolved. Chosen one, your standards aren't arrogance. They're evidence. Evidence that you learned. Evidence that you healed. Evidence that you refused to repeat lessons that nearly broke you. Your standards are the blueprint of your evolution. And evolution always offends the unevolved. They mocked you because they knew they couldn't go where you were going. You weren't being picky. You were ascending, and they were never built for the altitude. So chosen one, Your journey wasn't an accident. Every scar, every exile, every rejection shaped you into a leader who can't be duplicated. You rose from places that should have broken you, and now you carry a power the world can't ignore. If this message hit your spirit, press the like button if you haven't already, and if you're still not part of this family, make sure to hit subscribe. Your rise is just beginning, and this space is built for souls like you. Stay sharp, stay rising, and stay undeniable.